In today's video, we're going to talk about the PlayStation 5 Pro. This is Sony's mid-gen refresh of the PlayStation 5 product line. Retails for $699. Comes without a disk drive, so it's a digital-only console. There are no two variants where one has a disk drive and one doesn't. Instead, you have to pay the $699 base price, and if you happen to have 4K Blu-rays or PlayStation 5 physical media, you will need to shell out another $79.99 in order to get the same level of experience that you have on your base PlayStation 5. Now, if you're a gamer, you've probably been following online where there's kind of two camps of thought here. One camp, they can't fathom how a console could be so expensive. And then the other camp is what I'll call the technologists. They're just people that, maybe have disposable income or gaming is just one of their hobbies, one of the main hobbies, and they're totally fine with spending $1,000 on a new console. They maybe have a large 4K TV, 120 hertz VRR support, and they are just kind of chomping at the bit to get the next best experience out of their game consoles. Now, I understand both sides, and I actually don't own a PS5 Pro, so it's kind of contradictory that I'm making this video, but I wanted to share my opinions and thoughts from last generation. So, when I was thinking about the PS5 Pro the other day, I was thinking like, when the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro came out, they kind of fit a need, and it was very timely by Sony and Microsoft. Console gaming at the time had capped out around 1080p. Some games may have potentially been able to go higher, but they were capped at 1080p output. Even though a lot of people at the time had 4K TVs or monitors, there were so many displays being created that prices were driven so low. You can still buy a 4K TV for a couple $100 if you wanted to. But my point is there was a need there. So Microsoft and Sony filled that need. They realized, hey, console gaming could expand into higher fidelity, higher frame rate. I remember when I got the Xbox One X on day one, there was a Xbox One X enhancement patch for Ghost Recon Wildlands, and that just blew me away. Like, that game right there sold me. I was like, this $500 was well worth it. And I was a huge fan of the Xbox One X. I still think it's a fantastic console. It has a lot of power, a lot of GPU power, and I think it surprisingly holds its own even to this day. Now, with the PS5 Pro, it's kind of diminishing returns. But we have to be careful here. And I was thinking about this the other night, like, it's diminishing returns because there's not too many games that take advantage of it necessarily yet. But the biggest thing that you're also paying for with the PS5 Pro is the research and development for Sony to create hardware chips and software to run on that chip to AI upscale. So AI upscaling on the Sony platform is called PSSR right now. And I think as, you're paying for that, but I think as time goes on, more and more games are going to support PSSR. So it's going to get to the point where, games just run much better on the Pro. There's much more, wider adoption among developers where they're implementing patches or taking the Pro into consideration for future games. So I think the PS5 Pro will be a slow burn. It doesn't really fill a need just yet, so I understand why people are so divisive on the topic. I think that if you look back to the PS3 generation, when Sony tried to sell the PS3 for $600, that was kind of an outrage, and they learned from that. But I think with the Pro, it's not like they've forgotten their past. I think that it just costs so much money for these newly fabricated chips, this new software. It's expensive. If you're a PC gamer, you could spend $700 on a GPU tomorrow. It's honestly crazy. Now, I also wanted to mention that, gaming is at this weird, it's got to find equilibrium again. I feel like every publisher and developer wanted to be Fortnite or Grand Theft Auto Online. We saw what happened to Concord with Sony. Live services, open world, 100-hour games, loot boxes, skins, you name it, So gaming has gotten very expensive. And I miss the days of the original Xbox where it was just like, here's a original experience, something wacky, bizarre, but you'll probably enjoy it. Or if you don't, you move on to the next one. There was just so much software. Now it's getting to the point where it's so expensive and these companies aren't willing to take the risks, so they make some cookie cutter games. So I think the reason I'm bringing this up, I guess I should say, is we have to congratulate Sony to a certain extent. They're the only ones in the market that are willing to dip their toes in and to see if if there's even a market for this. Now, Nintendo is off doing their own thing. I can't believe the Nintendo Switch is still selling well. Whether you want to hear it or not, it's so low spec, and some of the games just run so poorly on it. It shocks me to this day that people are still buying the Switch. It's a great experience and it has its games, but some games, yikes, yikes. Now, Microsoft, on the other hand, they just said today they're 3 years out from, or potentially multiple years out from a handheld, and they have no Pro mid-gen refresh. And obviously, if you're a gamer, you know what they've been up to recently. It almost feels like they're exiting the hardware market, or they're going to be like a Steam, where it's like every decade they have some piece of hardware, whether good or bad, if you want it or not, but they'll have like one piece of hardware every decade. Other than that, they're just going to publish games on every platform. If you choose to buy the hardware, cool. If not, no worries. So really, if you're a console gamer and you're like, quote unquote, a hardcore gamer, your only hope really might be Sony to produce high-end hardware. And if we voice our concerns too negatively, I think it's great to give feedback from both camps. But if you voice your opinion too negatively, Sony might say, this isn't working out. We just can't, we can't reduce cost or subsidize it any further. We're just going to have to come out with lesser hardware because that's what the market demands. So it's a balancing act, and it's tough because, I think gaming in general is trying to find equilibrium again, and there's going to be some changes. And I congratulate Sony on the PlayStation 5 Pro, but I certainly understand the other side. And I guess my final conclusive thoughts would be, last gen, the mid-gen refresh really served a purpose. The PS5 Pro, not to say it doesn't, because apparently it's selling better than the PS4 Pro day and date. But it's going to be a harder sell to the average consumer. And I think it's going to take that incremental, iterative, as game publishers put in patches, we're going to have to see real evidence that there's some benefits here before people switch. And even so, they may never. A lot of people will probably wait for the PS6. So I think that last gen, mid-gen refresh made a lot of sense. This one is a little more difficult. It's harder for me to say this is great. And I think, even if I was in a place where I could buy an OLED TV and a PS5 Pro, I don't know if I would just yet. So I wanted to get this video out there, just get my thoughts in video format, and I'd love to hear what you think. Drop a like, comment down below. What do you think? Is it outrageous of Sony, or are they onto something here, or do you congratulate them for being the only one showing up, to the game, saying, hey guys, this is what we have. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a great day, and comment below.